Hi, for my article speech today, I picked an article by Kylie Butt from RMIT University. The article is called A Question of Values, Why We Need Art and Design in Higher Education. Ms. Butt really starts the essay off by quoting Hamilton, and it says, "In their being just for the sake of themselves can open worlds in which we might listen differently." This quote, I think, is important because it not only broadly defines what art and design is really all about, but it also is something that Ms. Budge would refer to throughout her article. Um, so, in the introduction, where the reader is introduced to this idea of enterprise universities, which is really when a university acts more like a business than what you would think of when you think of a traditional university. So, Miss Butch then goes on to talk about how this idea then translates into the value and the role of art and design in contemporary universities. The essay is broken off into three sections, and she addresses all three differently, but they kind of all lead into each other. The first issue that is addressed is what is valued in higher education. So, this really looks at what is valued in terms of both learning and teaching. The second part of it is how this in turns impact art and design policies. And then she goes off into looking at what is valued in art and design in general. So, a good place to really start is by looking at what's important in higher education right now. And I think one of the leading issues that most people could identify with is job placement. A lot of universities have become very pragmatic in that they want to focus on careers and majors that can lead you straight into a job right after graduation. And we all know that there's a myth of starving artists. So a lot of people believe that, when you're an art or a design major, you can't really find a job when you graduate. But the Strategic Arts Alumni Project conducted a research in 2010, and they were able to actually find that 92% of art alumni were able to find employment soon after graduation. Two-thirds said that their first job was a close match for the kind of work they wanted. 50% said they're currently working as professional artists, and 63% was self-employed since graduation. So this is, pretty good news for art and design majors, but a lot of people still don't really understand that artists can find jobs when they graduate. The second point is the idea of universities being more efficient. Everything's moving towards being faster and easier, so efficiency is obviously something that is important to universities. Unfortunately, I think this can get in the way of learning and teaching, especially because it becomes about numbers and figures instead of quantitative. It becomes quantitative instead of being quality. Um, so there's there are definitely numbers involved, and one of them is student to teacher ratio. If they can cover more classes and teach more students with less teachers, I think it's just less costly for universities, so that's something that they obviously gravitate towards. And the third point is actually very interesting because it was creativity. A lot of employers have recently said that they actually look for creativity in their hires because, which we will address later, they have a different way of thinking and problem solving issues. And even though there is a demand for more, unfortunately, as Miss Budge says in her article, despite the research and expectations, they're only addressed in policy documents. So it's not something that's carried out on a day-to-day basis. It's just something that's there and would like to be implemented, but I don't think it's currently implemented, at least to its full potential yet. So this brings to my second point, which is how does this affect the role and value of art? So the first one is obviously job outcomes. Because of that, I think art is currently devalued a lot. A lot of people don't really understand that people can get jobs after graduation. So it's just people just naturally assume that if you go into art or design, you probably will not be able to find a job after you graduate. Um, the second is design and art courses and classes don't really fit the efficiency models. They're usually smaller classes, so the ratio is again not the most efficient. And even though a lot of universities understand creativity, I think they don't really understand that creativity needs to flourish in a certain environment. So they're not really able to, or they don't want to fund that kind of money into courses that flourish creativity. The other part of this is also in terms of teaching, because there are facts and you have deadlines and evaluations. Teachers aren't, I think, fully able to really help you flourish your creativity. They're kind of on a tight, deadline, budgets. So again, very limited in terms of teaching as well. And the third is a lot of people think that, the experimental practice-based learning of creativity, which is usually referred to as the philosophical approach, is in direct odds with the theory, learning, research-based traditional learning modules. But I think it's, as Ms. Budge explains in her essay, the problem-based learning that is advocated in theory and learning and teaching, research-based learning, is actually very similar to creative policies, where you're asked to kind of go out there and research and just really find yourself within a problem. So I think even though people like to deny it, it's similar, and there are lots of similarities between the two. This brings me to my final point, which is what is valued in art. And I think the most important thing is to understand that in art, it's not the material project or the form and results that are valued. It's more about the transformational process and the possibilities and the contributions that you can really make to the world. This really opens up different ways of listening and perceiving the world around us, which ties me back to what I was trying to say earlier, is it becomes a different way of seeing problems and then going about solving them. I think art also becomes an outlet. So when there are situations that you can't necessarily understand or make sense, it helps art helps you reshape, inspire, transform, and even connect. And so it becomes this creative outlet for people and situations that you can't really scientifically prove, or there are lots of situations that are not black and white. So it's a nice place for you to go and just really find yourself in that situation. So this brings me to my conclusion. And I think I just want to say that art and design present a different way to interpret the world. And this is why I think that there are lots of, that there is a demand for creative people in industries beyond art and design. And I hope that universities don't erase art and design programs, because if nothing else, there's a demand for it. Um, and I think the most important thing that this article by Miss Budge achieves is it articulates the current situation within art and design. And it not only helps strengthen its existence, but it also adds value to the education project itself. So, if nothing else, I think people will understand that there is a role and value of art. Thank you.